Warframe. It's a game that I'd heard of countless times over the past 10 years, but had just never really looked into or even tried to play for myself. I'd heard mixed reviews, some said the game was amazing, and some said it has more grinding than a Friday night dance off at my cousin's wedding. I'm a little late to the party, admittedly. Okay, maybe I'm 12 years late to the party, but after seeing the game had tens of millions of users, and over a decade of constant support and updates, and the mostly positive reviews on Steam, I felt as if it was a game that I just had to try, after just kind of ignoring it for so long. So I finally gave the game a shot, and at the time of recording this video, I have around 40 hours in the game, and well, it's the complete opposite of what I expected. Today, I'm going to be sharing my experience as a first-time player of Warframe in 2025. Now, Warframe has always had a strong presence being a live service game. The community of Warframe is one of the most passionate communities I've ever seen for a video game. Many players love the game because of the constant updates the game has received for over a decade, and a monetization model that people agree with, which a lot of people feels respects the community's time that plays Warframe. Warframe has a lot of elements that I enjoy from games I've played before, with the looter-shooter elements of The Division and Destiny, and the MMO community elements of, say, World of Warcraft, and an art style that reminded me of a game that I played when I was younger, called Dark Sector. With that being said, after some research, the two games were made by the same developers, Digital Extremes, and the only real similarity is the Excalibur frame is the same asset that they used in Dark Sector for Hayden Tenno's armour. Also, Warframe's latest expansion, 1999, looks to me that they took a lot of inspiration from Dark Sector with the half-human, half-frame approach. But after seeing how many people were still playing Warframe just shy of 12 years after its launch, it got me thinking, why are people still playing this game? How are people not bored already? Is there enough content in the game to explain why so many people have spent thousands upon thousands of hours playing? There was only one way to find out the answers, and that was to jump in for myself. After the opening cutscene, which by the way is absolutely unbelievable, in my opinion better than some cutscenes we see in AAA games nowadays, I chose the Vault Warframe. Speed seemed to be his main attribute, and speed is always cool. I hopped into Warframe and thought, wow, this is just fun. The movement was fast, the Warframes look cool, the game does a great job at just making you feel cool. Slashing enemies with your melee attacks, dodging enemies with a cracked out movement, and using Vault's abilities to wipe big groups of enemies out of existence, like I was some sort of space ninja version of Thanos. The gameplay is some of the smoothest and dopamine injecting gameplay I've ever experienced in a video game. You literally feel unstoppable, double jumping over enemies, bullet jumping through missions to complete them as fast as possible. And if you're anything like me, jumping off the map probably 100 times in my first 2 hours of playing. But then I got to the point where the game just throws you into your orbiter with no direction, and I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like a lost kid in the supermarket. I wouldn't even be able to give a number of times I've had to go on the Warframe wiki to get answers to questions that the game just doesn't give you the answer to. It's as if they throw you into the game without giving you any help on practically anything and look at you and say, you know how to move around. Good luck. While laughing in your face as you sat there wondering, where the f*** do I go now? I think this is where a lot of new players just quit, and to be honest, I can completely understand why, but I wanted to look past that and keep pushing to truly find out why Warframe is as loved and highly spoken about as it is. I was then hit with something that I just wasn't expecting. Cetus, an explorable open world zone home to its own single player storyline, bounties and quests. For the first time in the game, I could see other players just wandering around, doing their own thing. It was almost like it was some sort of player hub. This is one of the small details that I personally love in video games, as it gives a sense of community without actually having to search for players to play missions with. This was one of the first moments that made me realise what I thought this game was. Well, I was completely wrong. After a little more playtime, I arrived at my second big shock and the moment that made me realise I was playing a game that was made with love and care. And that moment is when I arrived at Fortuna.
Sons and daughters, pride, the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future, strong, united, working till we fall, and we all lift, and we're all adrift together, together.
I was totally immersed in the environment, the music, the visuals, everything. It was just one of those moments of realisation that hooks you to a video game and makes you want to see what other surprises the game has in store the more you play. With the constant updates that the game has received and, well, being nearly 12 years old, Warframe has so much content to go through and play. You have a whole star chart to go and complete with 263 nodes across 14 different planets. You unlock different planets by completing junctions, which basically acts as a gateway between planets. You have certain requirements to be able to complete these junctions, and once you've completed all the requirements and made a path to the junction, you then go in and fight spectres of different warframes that all have their own unique abilities. If you kill the spectre, you then complete the junction and can move on to the planet that is on the other side of that junction. And those nodes are made up of different mission types, such as exterminate missions, where your only goal is to eliminate the given number of enemies and then extract. Spy missions, where your main goal is to get into vaults, ideally without being detected, to extract data, having to hack different ciphers to disable lasers and open doors to get to your objective. It's a nice change up from the fast guns blazing gameplay, having to use stealth and actually, use your brain instead of just flying around shooting things, working out different routes to take to get to those objectives. It's just a really nice change of pace and gives some variety to the missions. There's also rescue missions where you just have to go and rescue some hostages and, shoot a lot of bad guys in the process. And then assassination missions. These are missions that are home to unique enemy bosses with their own mechanics and loot drops. I even had one of these missions where I had to kill 2 bosses at once. And that's just to name a few. And there's also different open world areas, like I mentioned earlier, where you can just basically roam around freely, pretty much do what you want, but they do have quests, bounties to complete, and you can also go around the different planets to gather resources. And you also have over 50 frames to collect and over 500 weapons, so you've got plenty of items to go out there and grind for. It just seems like there's so much to do. I mean, you can even sit and RP as a fisherman if you like.
It is undeniably a very odd-looking beast.
There's just so much to do while you're gathering loot and trying to make your Warframe more powerful. At the end of the day, the game is a looter shooter, with the main focus on trying to become as powerful as possible and creating different builds to just go out and have fun with. And of course, grinding that last piece of gear to a build that just never seems to drop. But there are so many aspects of Warframe that make it an enjoyable experience instead of a chore. For example, I'm not sure how many times this does happen in the game, not sure if it does happen again. I am only around 40 hours into the game, but I encountered a sort of event that happened while I was roaming on Deimos, which showed a little cutscene of 2 giant worm things having a little disagreement. Now, obviously, I'm guessing there's some lore behind it, but personally, I haven't really looked into the lore as of yet. But it just made me feel like the environment was just alive and more immersive, and I thought that was just a really nice touch. And it's not just about how much content there is in the game, it's also the variety of content that's in the game. You even receive a piece of equipment called the Arcwing, which comes with its own missions, allowing you to just fly through space. And I also came across a mission that allows you to play as a mech, which comes once again with its own abilities and mechanics. This is one of the main aspects of Warframe which I feel keeps people engaged for so long, and that's the variety of content. It's not just the same loop of running through and completing missions with your Warframe. There's constant changes of pace and constant changes of game mechanics which make you want to keep playing, and ultimately it just stops you from getting bored. To me, at times, it feels like I'm playing more than one game, but all within the same game, if that makes sense. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 59 unique frames to collect, which all come with their own abilities and play styles. And there's no 2 Warframes that are the same, so you can always find something that suits your play style. I wish I had the opportunity to play another frame and try another frame out, but unfortunately, I haven't had that opportunity yet. And that's hugely down to the systems in the game. Now, after playing the game more and more and progressing through the star chart, I quickly found out that there are so many different systems in Warframe, which was always going to come with a game that is almost 12 years old. For example, the foundry. This is where you craft frames and weapons and other pieces of gear that, by the way, are time gated, so yeah, have fun twiddling your thumbs waiting for your frames to craft. In all seriousness, I do think that the wait times on crafting are pretty obnoxious, especially for a new player that doesn't have a lot of weapons or frames to use. So like me, you may get to a point where you have to wait 12 hours for a new weapon to craft just to be able to rank it up. And if you thought a 12-hour wait time was bad, Warframes take 72 hours to craft. Waiting up to 72 hours for one single item to craft is one of the things that I can see is off-putting for a lot of new players. There are currently 59 unique frames in the game, so waiting for all of those to craft at 72 hours per frame is going to take a lot of hours in itself, just waiting. With the crafting system having to wait hours and even days for new items to become available to use, I got to a point where I had all of my weapons, my Warframe, and my companion maxed out, so I could not progress through the mastery rank system, which I'll touch on in just a second. I basically just had to wait for items to craft to then be able to carry on progressing. You can use the in-game premium currency platinum, which does cost, in real life money, to rush the crafts, and they'll become available to use straight away. But once again, I'll touch on that a little bit more later. That being said, I feel like this is only going to be a problem at the start of the game, because as you progress and have more items crafted, you're going to be ranking up those items while having other items crafting in your foundry, and you're sort of going to have a constant rotation of items to level up. So yeah, there's also the mastery rank system, which is basically Warframe's leveling system, where when you level up an item to level 30, you gain XP towards your mastery rank. Now, the way you actually progress through the ranks is once you meet the XP requirements to rank up, you can then enter a test, and if you complete the test, you rank up. If you fail, you fell and you have to wait to do it again. You want to be leveling up your mastery rank to get access to weapons that are unlocked by hitting a certain rank. For example, there may be a weapon that you've seen that you'd like to use, but you need to be mastery rank 5 to unlock and craft that weapon. Now, I did experience a stop in my progression when it came to mastery ranks. Like the foundry and the crafting system, time gating also comes with the mastery rank system. You can only rank up once per 24 hours. Even if you have enough XP to go and do your next mastery rank test, if it's not at least 24 hours after your previous mastery rank up, well, you have to wait to do it again. So if you have a weapon you want to use that requires you to be the next mastery rank up, you have enough XP to do it, you can't do it because there's a time gate on it. You have to wait for the mastery rank cooldown, then you have to wait for the craft time to craft that weapon. This is one of the only things that I'm not a huge fan of in the game, time gates. If I have everything I need to craft an item, I shouldn't be stopped from doing that just because of a time gate. Now, like I did mention earlier on, you can go ahead and spend the premium currency to rush the crafting times. If I'm being quite honest, I'm guessing that is how they make most of their money. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a free-to-play game. They do need to make money somehow. I definitely think that is one of the aspects of the game that can really slow down your progress and is very off-putting for new players. But the most important system in terms of making your frame more powerful is the modding system. Unlike other games, your overall power doesn't increase from you solely leveling up or even the weapons that you use. I mean, yeah, the mastery rank system helps you unlock certain rewards at certain levels, but most of your Warframe's power comes from the mods that you equip. I added mods to my build and didn't really feel a huge difference towards the start of the game. I mean, it's not very challenging at the start of the game, but it just didn't feel like I was getting any stronger, even in the slightest. And that was until I learned that you can actually rank up those mods with credits and endo. So I definitely didn't spend my first 15 hours of the game not knowing that was a thing, but hey, at least I know now. Once again, another thing that the game just doesn't teach you. This is the system that I feel is huge in terms of feeling progression, just feeling like you're more powerful. But the game just didn't give any information on it, and I had to stumble across this feature online. Now, this would become a common factor, having to find out details and information about the various systems online rather than in the game itself. I feel like half of my time was playing the game, and the other half I was researching and trying to find out what each system in the game actually does. And remember, I'm only around 40 hours into the game, so I'm sure that there are other systems that I'll have to sit and revise like I'm sitting a finals exam, and I haven't even come across them yet. So after seeing how much I had to research these systems to basically learn how they work, I thought this was going to be the case for finding out where to find and farm different frames, and also how to get the blueprints for those frames. But after looking around, I found the market tab, and this is where you can buy in-game currency to buy frames or different cosmetics, but it's also where you can find out where to find the different blueprints for the frames that you want. I mean, this is definitely a nice thing to have. You can press on the blueprint, see where to acquire that blueprint, so basically you can just go and get it. When I first saw this, I thought it was crazy that on the same page you could pay for those frames, but right underneath it showed you where to acquire it for free. That to me is the devs being as transparent as possible, saying, well, you can pay for this, but also here is where you can go and find it for free. That's where I realised that everything is accessible for completely free. Most of the game can be acquired without paying a penny, with the exceptions of a few cosmetics, but the items and the frames and the weapons, they are all accessible and acquirable for absolutely free. You can also go ahead and buy platinum, the in-game currency, to purchase frames, but to me, I don't really see why you would do that. It's not so much pay to win, but more pay to skip the grind. For me, it feels the game was built with one of the main focuses to be around the grind. Hence the time gates on crafting. It's a game made for you to keep coming back over and over and over again. So paying to skip that grind feels like you'd be paying to have less fun. I mean, if that's what you're into, go ahead. Obviously, everyone is different and everyone has different circumstances, but I think it would take a little away from the fun and I'd just much rather grind for them myself. And even better, all of the expansions and all of the content in the game is available for absolutely free. You don't have to pay anything. Most free-to-play games, expansions and added on content practically always have to pay for. Destiny. Or in Warframe, it's completely free. Warframe also has its own in-game built-in trading system, which allows you to sell items for platinum with other players, so you can acquire platinum without using actual money. I think this is massive that Digital Extremes allow this, because it gives a way for players to sometimes skip the crafting time gate without the only solution being spending real money. So there isn't actually anything in the game that says you have to spend money to do this or you have to pay to progress this. And to be quite honest, it's one of the strangest monetization systems I've seen in a free-to-play game, but it obviously works. Warframe is a game that has grown on me the more I've played. The devs obviously care a lot about the game, the amount of content, constant support for the game. The general gameplay is addicting in itself, and if you can get past the confusion of when you're first thrown into the game and the amount of systems in the game has that variety and satisfaction that keeps bringing you back to play more and more. And it did ultimately answer my questions as to why people are still playing Warframe and why Warframe is gaining new players and retaining new players for so long. I've really enjoyed playing Warframe, and it's something I plan to keep playing into the future. Exploring more of the planets, discovering the new mechanics the game just seems to keep endlessly throwing towards me. I feel like the game can only get better and better the more you play, with the different warframes and the weapons to unlock. There's just so much variety in the game. It is pretty crazy. I'm excited to discover more of what Warframe has to offer, and I'd love to cover the game again. If you're interested in my experience in 100 hours of gameplay and beyond, just let me know down in the comments, like the video, subscribe. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.